I'm over in DuPont State Forest, and I thought that I would create a video and tell another story of how a trail became to be, because some of that history is probably lost at this point in time. I'm on Jim Branch Trail, and you can see an old roadbed right here. So the condemnation of the core property, what we call the core property, happened in 2000. Ed Sutton and I formed Trail Dynamics in 2002, and we immediately had work. DuPont was coming online. Our first project and our first customer was the Biltmore Estate. We joined PTBA, Professional Trail Builders Association, pretty much within that first year. And several years later, I got on the board of PTBA and then became the president of PTBA. I don't remember the exact date, but maybe 2005, 2007, somewhere in there. We'd always held our conferences out in Reno, Nevada, and I was not a big fan of the casino atmosphere that our conferences were. So I pushed for diversifying and having trail conferences in different places. And the first PTBA conference we had in Asheville, North Carolina was 2009. And then 2011, we returned to Asheville. They were held in Asheville proper, but we used DuPont as a laboratory for a lot of our outdoor workshops. So Jim Branch Trail, as I showed you, was an old roadbed. It was very much a challenged alignment. Worked with David Brown, the forest supervisor at the time, to come up with a plan. We decided we were going to abandon that section and do a relocation. So we actually had 3 different workshops on this trail. Ed Sutton, my former partner with Trail Dynamics, was leading a workshop up here. That was basically a mechanized trail building workshop. And then I was co-managing 2 different workshops that were really close. And one was a road to trail conversion workshop in which we used machines. We located the trail in the best place on the roadbed, sometimes poking out of the old roadbed to try to break up that linear look that old roadbeds have. So here you can see, looking back, this was the old roadbed, and we popped out to the left just for a little short while, crossed over, and we're back on the roadbed now. Lots of drains. That's always a signature of ours, Ed and mine, is lots of drains. You can see this is the old roadbed here, so we drain into the old roadbed as a linear sump. We poked out left. Of course, all of this had been pin flagged and approved prior to the workshop. Again, just breaking up that linear look, reminding everybody that it is in fact an old roadbed by jigging and jagging. And here we crossed the old roadbed here, and we went out to the right, not very far, 20 feet maybe, again to pick up some more interesting terrain. I should also point out that the 2 pieces of the new trail construction and the road to trail conversion down here are seamless. Very few users would know the difference between one and the other. We're starting to blend back in to the old road corridor. I'm a big fan of these road to trail conversions. I think they can provide for a really fun and single track feeling experience. And we certainly developed a lot of techniques experimenting with different ways to do that here in DuPont State Forest. And we kind of became known as the Trail Laboratory. What we did here, the work that we did here, certainly had a domino effect, and many other places have done similar. Back in the old road corridor now. But when we're in the old road corridor, the sections are short enough, and then we jog right back out. And I think that that's one of the keys. Because right now, you can see the old road corridor is right there, off to our right. And we jog out left very quickly. The landscape was, relatively flat, so we could put the trail kind of most anywhere. Then we drain into the old road bed as a sump, pop out left, and then come right back into the old road corridor here. But you notice that we did a lot of landscape work with logs and rocks, and that's to break up that this is an old roadbed look. Again, this has a wonderful feel to it, and it does not feel like the old roadbed that it is. Again, this was part of a workshop in 2011. Ed had mechanized trail building up above. This was a second workshop, which was road to trail conversions. And in the very bottom of this, everybody knows that long section of rock armoring. That was a third workshop. I had Shrimper, I had Bill Goulding from Canada, his brother Richard leading those up. I would check on them from time to time. This is a afterthought. This got added after the fact as a way to avoid the rock armoring, especially for horses. But we're in the true old road corridor. I wanted to challenge myself, to see if we could make these old road corridors sustainable. And sure enough, what we did has worked beautifully. This is certainly the longest section of rock armoring that I have ever done. It arguably is the longest section of rock armoring in the southeast. Maybe further reaches. Lots of rock. We staged all of the rock at the bottom several days before the workshop. All of these 3 workshops were 2 days long, so all of this rock armoring happened in 2 days. But we had a crackerjack crew, and we had many hands for this, people working in several different sections at a time. It's a combination of some stone pitching and then also flag stone. You can look those up if you don't know what those are. And then at the very bottom, it has some Appalachian armoring, which is a technique that I developed here in DuPont. So we're definitely in the old road corridor here, but we drain to the right, and you can see following it down, and then water goes out left. So we're still trying to manage water, but rock armoring is impervious to user impacts and pretty impervious to rain. Obviously this has had a tremendous amount of rain, a number of different hurricanes since 2011, and has held up absolutely beautiful. That's a great section of trail. Really happy with how it turned out. Trying to innovate, that was something that I was big into here in DuPont, is innovating new techniques, not necessarily always just relocating, but how can we take some of these old steep roads and use rock liberally and keep the feel. So this pops down the last little section. There was a drain right behind me there. Now, this last little section is mostly old, all flagstone, really large rocks. Again, we staged our rock depot basically right in this area, and then down to the left. And the biggest rocks were certainly placed using excavators, and the smaller rocks and filling in between was by hand. So that was a 2-day workshop, PTBA Trail Conference in 2011 here in DuPont State Forest. Really enjoyed that project and that workshop.